Your Royal Highness, thank you very much for speaking to us. It's a very poignant time, of course, but I know that you want to focus on celebrating your father's life at this point.
Indeed, I mean, absolutely, and not just such a broad life, but a life that was involved in so many different interests, and he travelled so much of the world and saw so much. And not only that, but he was the sort of person that, once met, never forgotten.
It would have been your father's 100th birthday. How do you think he looked back on his public work?
He was always incredibly self-effacing. It wasn't about him, it was about other people. He just gave them the nudge, encouragement, and off they go. And tragically, it wasn't until he passed away that everybody went, wow, that's what he did? And of course, it's too late, he never found out. But then I suspect that if he had made it to his 100th birthday, that a lot of that would have come out. And it would have been lovely for him to have heard it himself. But then again, because he was just so self-effacing, he just wouldn't have wanted the fuss and the bother, and I don't think he ever really necessarily wanted to reach his, because I just think he thought there'd just be too much fuss. And that wasn't him. That was just not him at all.
You're very focused on the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme, which many people may think of as an outward bound scheme, but actually it's more than that, isn't it? It's almost a motivational self-confidence exercise.
Well, it's a framework. It's a framework of activities. It was to encourage young people and adults to get involved in non-formal activities, so out of classroom learning. And of course, it empowered both adults and young people to take control of those destinies. And it doesn't matter where in the world that young person or that adult is, it's the same. And hence the reason why I think it's spread to 130 countries. And it's doing particularly well in the States. It was a bit of a late starter there, but it's brilliant. And what's really exciting about what's going on in the States is that nearly 50% of the young people involved are from what we would call at-risk or marginalised young people and disadvantaged young people, which is brilliant, because those are young people that can really benefit from this.
We should also talk about his other role, which a bigger role, arguably, his role as consort, and probably the biggest influence on arguably one of the greatest reigns in British history, away from the Queen. Can I ask how she's coping without him?
Well, thank you for asking, and I think actually doing remarkably well. But then I think that yes, it was a fantastic partnership, but over the last couple of weeks, life has got considerably busier. Things are beginning to open up. There are more activities, so sort of weirdly that sort of fills any particular void. I think there are going to be other times further on in the year where I think that it will become a bit more poignant and a bit harder. But at the moment, thank you very much indeed for asking, but I think everybody's in pretty good shape, really.
I don't want to pry too much in private matters, but this is a private matter which is also very public, which you'll be aware of. But must have been the family rift. It's undeniably there. That must have been very difficult for her too. How is she coping with that, can I ask?
Well, it all depends on... Are you euphemistically referring to Harry and Meghan, are you?
Yeah, yes. I mean, there's the divide between the Sussexes and the rest of the family currently.
Do you know? Yeah, I mean, it's very sad. Weirdly, we've all been there before. We've all had excessive intrusion and attention in our lives, and we've all dealt with it in slightly different ways. And listen, we wish them the very best of luck. It's a really hard decision. Fantastic news about the baby. That's great. I hope they'll be very happy with that. And it's just, listen, families are families, aren't they, really?
They are, and I think you're right. They do happen in all families. It's just the very public nature of this. And I wondered how difficult that had been for her.
It's difficult for everyone. It's difficult for everyone. But as I said, that's families for you. So.
We talked about how she just carries on in this remarkable way, in this very inspiring way. And President of the United States, currently in the United Kingdom. And the Queen is the longest serving head of state in the world. She's met so many presidents, as I've said, and so many heads of state around the world. I mean, I wonder it must be an opportunity also for those heads of state to speak to someone who's been there, done that, and had that experience as well.
when you meet somebody who's had that level of personal experience and knowledge, it's I mean, sometimes it's slightly sort of it can slightly overawe some people, you know. And I think most people come away wishing that they'd had a little bit longer. That's usually the response. God, just so would have liked to have had a little bit longer because that was fascinating.
And they always stay private, these conversations, don't
Yeah.
they? So it's almost like a very high level of counselling in many ways. And prime ministers have spoken about that.
And it's very, very important that the fact that they all stay private is something that is a bit strange in this world. You know, you expect a communique to appear almost instantly, or a press conference. The fact that nothing like that happens does mean that actually people really do respect the fact that this is a genuinely private, off-the-record conversation. So they really can talk about things and get to the heart of things in a very genuine fashion, because they know it's not going to come out.
Does she ever let slip to you in any way?
Goodness gracious me.
Sunday lunch?
Of course not. Of course not.
So you won't hear anything about the meeting with President Biden?
Well, even if I did, I've forgotten about it the next day.
Thank you very much for speaking to me.
Pleasure. Thank you for your interest.